your hand over your eyes, and I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today. And I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today. And over your heart, just extend out your arms. I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today. The spiritual truth that I'm working with today is that you are loved and that you are lovable. You are loved and that you are lovable. You know, today's Father's Day, and sometimes our earthly fathers had so many conditions surrounding their love that we might have gotten that feeling that we weren't lovable. Some of us had fathers who decided to leave before we were quite done experiencing their love, and with children's eyes, we might have even thought we were the reason that they left. It wasn't until we came to spiritual communities like this and realized with grown-up eyes that there's nothing a child can do to make a grown man leave his children. That was part of his journey. No blame, no shame. That was part of what he had to do. Nothing to do with how lovable we are in our lives. See, other people were fortunate enough to have a father like the father in the prodigal son. I love to teach on this story during Father's Day because it's such a powerful, powerful nourishment for us in terms of how to parent. Not only how to father. Jesus, when he told this parable, he wasn't talking about fathering children. He was talking about fathering a flock. So this kind of fathering that we're talking about here with the parable of the prodigal son is appropriate for all of us, but especially for fathers. See, I want to make sure that we're clear about what a parable is. It has two meanings. It has an upper meaning that almost anybody can get. Then it has a deeper meaning in it. It also is not true. It's not a true story. It has no historical accuracy. See, great teachers bring out parables when they know that the story that they need to teach is a tough sell. It's a tough story. And so instead of just going at it directly, and in Jesus' case, he knew that teaching about compassionate fathers was going to be a tough sell to his disciples because they lived in an era in which there was rules, and that's what you did. And the fathers had rules, and they lived by the rules. And Jesus wanted to change the narrative. He wanted to acknowledge that there are rules, but he also wanted to change the narrative and bring compassion in to the compassionate father. And so what he did was he told this story so that they could hear it and separate their emotions from it. They could just hear the story. Well, he started it with once there was a man with two sons. There was a son who was a behavior and a son who was a misbehavior. The older son was the behavior. The younger son was the misbehavior. Now, all of us have either been the behavior in our family or the misbehavior in our family. And I suspect in this particular church, yeah. But there may be a few behaviors in here. I haven't met you yet, but I look forward to that. But the truth is, no matter what our gender, whether we're male or female, whether we're the firstborn or the lastborn, we can identify with all the parts of this story because they're all parts of our own consciousness, as is in every scriptural story. They're all part of who we are. We're the father, we're the prodigal son, we're the behavior son, and we are the disciples in this story. So, so what happened is the behavior, or the misbehavior son, the younger son, you know this story, he goes to the father. Now, I'm going to tell you what he said to the father in words that would bring out the same emotion that the disciples had when they heard what the misbehavior said to the father. The misbehavior said, "I wish you were dead. But since you don't want to die, give me my part of the inheritance." And that same gasp we heard right now is what the disciples did. Oh my God, what a disrespectful child. He doesn't deserve anything. Just get rid of him. Just send him off on his way without anything. He's disrespectful. It's gasp-worthy. But see, that's not what the ideal father said. The ideal father said, okay. Now, in truth, it might have been better in the long run for the misbehaving son for the father to say, no, I'm not going to give you your inheritance. But he didn't. Why didn't he? Because this wasn't a 15-year-old, this was a young man. And it was time for the young man to begin to experience the consequences of his life that would lead him to a greater being of who he is. And that's true for all of us. You know, there are times in my life it would have been much better for me had the universe told me no to my intentions, to my desires. But always the universe says yes. Why? So that I will begin to learn from what I'm going to go through. I'll begin to experience the consequences of my life. See, some of us, we've already experienced this. We know what it's like, and we've come out stronger from it. You know, those of you who fell in love on a Tuesday and on a Friday brought the U-Haul up to the new person's house, you've experienced what that's like. Nobody could have told. People did try and tell you, are you nuts? Don't do it. But we didn't listen because we needed to go through that experience in our life. Some of us have broken the law and we've spent time in jail. It was part of our journey. It was part of how we could learn about things. Now, it's no accident that the misbehavior in the story is a young person. He's youthful. Because our youthful mind is what needs adventure, and it allows us to go out and make these mistakes. And it's an important part of the story because sometimes you and I look back at our youthful life and we have shame around it. We can let the shame go. What happened to us, say we started a business and we had no business starting a business because we didn't know anything about business. And as a result of that, we made a mess out of our life for a while. And now we have shame and regret around it. Pain we've caused ourselves and other people. We can let that go. That was part of our journey to our soul's expansion in our lives. Some of us married maybe a high school sweetheart. We were too young to be married. They were too young to be married. We don't need to have shame or regret around it. We need to just move on and know that that was part of our journey in this life. Everywhere we went, God went with us. Now, some of those behaviors did not make us happy, but they were all for our good. And as I say a lot, we need to get clear. The difference between good and happy can be wide. Everything is for our good. Every single thing that ever happened to us, that ever will happen to us, is for our good, but it won't always make us happy in our lives. See, we have to begin to learn God's rules. Learn God's rules. And then we have to, dare I say it, we have to obey. I know. Now, if that really just works your last nerve and you're ready to run out of the room, just substitute harmony. You've got to be in harmony with these rules. But there are no exceptions to the rules. See, there are no exceptions to the rules, and we have to learn them in order for our journey to bring us back to our divinity in our lives. See, all of us started out with high adventure. That's what we wanted. None of us start in this room, including myself, started out to be an alcoholic. Nobody. We started out because we wanted adventure in our lives, and it got away from us. Nobody in this room started out to get married 5 times. We did that because we wanted a sweet, loving relationship, and we couldn't quite get it right. None of us started out to be totally in debt, but because we weren't harmonizing with the rules of God, with God's law, we ended up that way. See, there are no exceptions to God's rule, no matter how much intention you have, no matter how nice you are, no matter how sweet you are. There's no exceptions to God's rules. If you want to be prosperous in your life, you have to learn the law of prosperity. There's no other way around it. You have to learn how to see the law of circulation. You have to learn about how forgiveness works. You have to learn how to be worthy. You have to learn how to receive. Those are practices within the law of abundance that you cannot get away with in your life. If your desire is to have a sweet marriage, you have to learn the laws of how it works to be in divine relationship. You have to learn how to forgive. You have to learn how to treat each other with respect. You have to learn how to sleep in your own bed. You have to learn all of these rules in order to be able to achieve that which you want in your life. And there are actually no exceptions in your life. You want good health, that's your desire. You have to learn the rules of good diet, balance, sleep and activity. That's a rule, a harmonizing rule that we have to be one with. See, Jesus wasn't pointing the finger at these disciples and saying, you must be a good, compassionate father. He was saying, this is how God does it. This is how God fathers, and how you can father in your life. See, people think that Jesus told us what to do. Jesus never told people what to do. Jesus told us how God does it in our life. Buddha tells us how God does it, how the universe does it in our life. Lao Tzu shares principles about how the universe does it in our life. Bill Wilson taught us the traditions to teach us how to live on life's terms in our life. It's all around us. But you can't pick and choose. Oh, I'll choose this thing to do and that thing not to do. You have to be in harmony with all of it. See, well, the son goes off. He makes a mess of his life. You know the story. He makes a total mess of his life. He's squandered all the money, as we thought he would, and all the disciples thought he would, and his father knew he would. He squandered all of his money. The only job he can get is caring for swine. He's just made a total mess, and he feels terrible about himself. And he thinks, well, if I'm going to be a farmhand, why not go back to my father's house and be a farmhand? And so he decides to go back. And on his way back, his journey back, he's practicing his speech that he will give to his father. And the disciples they're just rubbing their hands together. Oh boy, oh boy. The speech goes something like this: I'm a sinner, I'm a sinner, I'm a sinner, I'm not worthy of your forgiveness. And the disciples are saying, that's right, that's right. Ooh, wait till the father gets hold of him. But as I say, the father changes the whole narrative. And what he says is, welcome home. In fact, as the kid's coming up, the father runs to meet him. Don't miss this. All we have to do is to begin to start back into our divinity. We just have to begin the journey, and divinity will come to us in our life. And so they meet in the center and they hug, and he even kisses him, which was this big, huge deal because he'd been with pigs, and the disciples were just having a conniption fit. But he kisses the kid, and he wraps his arms around him, and he gives him gifts, and he brings him in. So powerful for us as a teaching of how to father, how to parent ourselves as well as anybody we have around us. That we can forgive ourselves, that we can just hold each other and ourselves in that situation. Notice, too, that the father did not go out to the bars to look for the kid. He didn't go out to the brothels to look for the kid. He just waited for the kid to come home. That's what's happening with our Heavenly Father. That's what's happening with our Divine One. That's what's happening with infinite intelligence. It's waiting for us to come back. And all we have to do is take that step in our life. So what keeps us from that? What keeps us from that step? I think part of what keeps us from choosing divinity over adventure that we even know now is crazy adventure is that we think we're going to have to somehow get all religious. We're going to have to there won't be any fun in our lives. We need to, I know it's deep, but I think it's there. We have to let that go. It's very fun. There's lots of adventure. There are people in this church right now that are creating crazy successful businesses by harmonizing with God's law. There are people in this church right now that are bolstering and restoring broken marriages by harmonizing with God's law, and it is an adventure. There's plenty of adventure in harmonizing. It's not a matter of, oh, I'm going to have to learn how to do that. No, it's not that. That's not what God's adventure is. It's simply getting in harmony with the things. Well, here's the thing. We forget that. But no matter how often or how long you forget it, here's what you want to remember. We just have to ring God's doorbell. Where is God's doorbell? It's in your heart. It's in the stillness. It's in taking a moment to just ring the doorbell of your soul because it's right there and it will come flooding out. I promise you. Well, the last part of the story that I want to make sure that we get to is the behavior of the behavior son. You know, that's the son. Here's the thing. The kid comes home. He gets gifts. The father says, we're going to kill the fatted calf, and we're going to throw a party for you. And the older son, the behavior son, says, well, what is this? That fatted calf was for my wedding. What is this? He's throwing a party for that bratty brother of mine? I stayed here and I did the work. Even though I didn't want to stay here and do the work, I would have rather been off partying, but I stayed here and I did the work. And he gets all the fun in life. Pay attention to this story. If you are staying in a dead-end relationship and you have worked the best you can to get this relationship back on track and it's still not working, listen to this parable. Nobody's going to throw a party for you. You are going to be in a dead-end relationship. If you're in a job that's a dead-end job and you just dread going to work every single day, listen to this parable. Nobody's going to throw a party for you. You're just going to keep going to that dead-end job. Now, look, I'm not an advocate for divorce. I'm not an advocate for pushing people out of your life at all. But I'm saying if you've done everything you can do, be careful if you're staying around and hoping someday heaven's going to hit you, because heaven is at hand right now, and the glory that is for you is here right now. Jesus tells us it's the Father's good pleasure to give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Heaven is here. It's right now. And one of the ways we can activate that heaven in our life is by making sure that we are compassionate people in our lives. Let's take this message into prayer. Knowing that you are loved and you are lovable. Knowing that love is the only power, as Peggy says, love is the only power and it's all around us. Everywhere we look, love is. Sometimes we have to search for it because it's dusty. Sometimes it's even dirty, but love is where, everywhere we go, love is. I give thanks for that. I release this word into the law. Together we say, and so it is. You know, we're going to, from time to time now, we're going to bring somebody up that's going to help us know how important this church is to them and how important Science of Mind is to them. I'm going to ask Rick Harrell to come up and share with us.
Can you put your hands up? India Henri wrote a song. She said, slow down, baby. You're going too fast. You got your hands in the air and your foot on the gas. You about to wreck your future running from your past. You better slow down, baby, before you go down, baby. Now, this is what I learned from Science Mind, that I'm really not running from anything. I choose the destination that I'm driving to, and I make those decisions every day of my life. Remember, change your thinking, you change your life, but you gotta take hold of the wheel. So putting your hands on the wheel is learning how to live a life of faith. Now, faith is an uncomfortable word. It's an old-fashioned word. So if you don't like it, use the word investment, okay? And you realize when you invest in something, you get back a bigger dividend or a profit than your investment, okay? So I made 4 investments to get to the destination of my choice. Number 1, I wanted control over my life. The investment here was I learned my life is my responsibility all the time. It's my choice. No one can make decisions for me, but I made decisions with other people's ideas. Remember, it is unto me as I believe. Destination number 2, I wanted to live a life of prosperity, and here's an investment tip. Give, and it shall be given back to you. Pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Men will give to you, okay? So you better take the wheel and give. Destination number 3, I wanted professional success. No matter what anyone said that I could not, I should not, that's not possible, and I don't know if you've ever gotten this one. You? But here was what I learned when I took the wheel, that I can do all things through God because God is all there is, and with God, all things are possible. Destination number 4, I wanted to be happy, and I get to fill in the blank with what makes me happy, okay? Even when it appears that my life is falling apart and I just don't know what to do. I learned this one from Reverend Brenda. God is the only power in my life. Nothing from without can touch the perfect life of God within. No past experience has any power over me. I take dominion. Take the wheel.